What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of The ROC, the Right of Center podcast with yours truly at Real Mike Bell and my boy over here,
Ryan Gass.
Now, guys, today it is a ROC exclusive. We're sitting down with one of the baddest motherfuckers on the East Coast, all right, over there from
Eastern Shore.
Eastern Shore, that's right, of Maryland, and it is Shorebilly Farmer. Shorebilly, what's up, my guy?
Hello from DelMarVa. How you guys doing today? Thank you for letting me come on to the Rock Nation.
Absolutely.
Oh, man, we're killing it. And guys, so Shorebilly, first of all, Shorebilly, is that what you want me to call you, or do you want me to call you something else?
Oh, man, just like you said, just don't call me late for dinner, man. Shorebilly, Richard, it doesn't matter.
Right on. So Richard is a fan of the ROC. He's a fan of the message that we're putting out. And not only that, but he went ahead and peeled off some of his greenbacks and went over to rockpodcastnation.com and became a ROC supporter. So why don't you guys go ahead over there, follow Shorebilly, and do the right thing. Don't be a taker, guys. Help us get this mission out.
Yeah, no freeloaders. Nobody likes a freeloader.
So as I was mentioning, so Shorebilly, Richard over here, he's a fan of the show. He's been listening to me and Ryan kind of spread our drivel, if you will, the message that is right of center, and said, hey, guys, you guys are leaving a lot of meat on the bone. In fact, that's his exact words. So Richard is going to sit in here with us today virtually, and we're going to go over a few of the old episodes and try to see if we can't pull out anything else. What do you think, Ryan?
That sounds great to me.
All right, Richard. So we are at your service, buddy. So what has been like your go-to episode? Like, if you could hear more about something, what would it be?
Oh, man, I tell you, if I wanted to hear some more about something, it would be COVID.
Yeah.
I feel like there was a lot of things left unsaid that I feel like need to be said that are, I side more with Ryan on, I'm a constitutionalist. Yes, I am right of center. I am libertarian, I believe, as well. But I am socially liberal in the fact that I don't care who you want to marry. I don't care who you want to be. Just leave me alone. Yep. You do you, and let me do me.
Sure.
So
I think before we get any farther, let's go ahead and actually, if you can, introduce yourself. Tell us about yourself, a little background about you and what you do.
All right. Well, my name is Richard. I am the Shorebilly Farmer on YouTube. We started this channel basically because, I liked watching YouTube channels, seeing other farmers, seeing what they were doing out west. But I kept noticing a theme. All these farmers were third, fourth, fifth generation farmers, huge equipment, big farms, lots of land. And I was like, the little guy's not getting his story out. I'm a first generation farmer. We started this farm 8 years ago when I got out of the military, and we started with 3 acres, and now we're up to farming 200 acres. I share crop another 200 acres with another farmer. So we're doing essentially 400 acres. We do things a lot different. Things are a lot more crucial for us. So I feel like that story needed to be told. And that's why my wife and I decided, you know what, we're going to jump both feet and head first into doing this YouTube channel. And so far, it's been a lot of fun. We've had a great reception from people that are here on DelMarVa and even people all over the country. They send me messages. Hey, man, like what you do. That's why we jumped in, and that's how the Shorebilly Farmer came around.
So you keep on saying DelMarVa, and I know what that means, but for those that don't know, what is the DelMarVa?
Well, the DelMarVa Peninsula is the peninsula that is just east of D.C., Washington, D.C., and it's called DelMarVa because it's made up of Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. It's a peninsula that hangs way out. We actually have, on DelMarVa, Maryland has the shortest coastline. Delaware has the longest, Virginia has the longest. Delaware has the second longest. Maryland has the shortest coastline along the Atlantic Ocean. And my farm is actually 6 miles inland from the Atlantic Ocean. And that's another thing that the channel kind of capitalizes on, is the fact that we farm so close to the ocean. Our weather is completely different, and how we farm is completely different from what just 20 miles inland does. Those months of March and April where, in Salisbury, the center of DelMarVa, 20 miles in off the ocean, it could be 50, 60 degrees, sun shining and beautiful. Well, we've got a wind coming in off the ocean. It's 35, 40 degrees here and foggy. So there's a lot of things we deal with, hurricanes, tropical storms that a lot of the other farmers that you see on YouTube don't get to really showcase. And that's something I plan on, if it happens, God forbid, you're going to see everything. I don't hold nothing back. I show the good and the bad. You're going to see in an episode that actually just came out 2 hours ago, I show the bad, where a piece of equipment pretty much tore itself apart right in the middle of the field.
Well, Richard, we are fans of you. We're fans of what you represent. And from one veteran to another, thank you for your service, brother.
Yes, sir. Thank you for yours. And by the way, I got a fresh pack of crayons for you and Ryan both.
Hey, I'm not. Hey, first of all, only Marines eat crowns.
Yeah.
I'll enjoy them sometime on Marine Corps birthday with my fellow brethren. But
I feel like I'm almost in the Air Force. I feel like I'm almost in the Air Force right now with this office chair. I never got to sit in the office chair so much.
So,
man, that one ain't plush enough. You ain't Air Force yet.
Yeah.
So I resonate with what you say, brother. I grew up in the southeast of Arizona. And a very, very arid climate, one very small, if you called it a river, we called it a river back home, but out here, if you called what we had out there a river, you wouldn't fly. I mean, it's like a creek. There's nothing to it. You can walk across it in like 5 minutes. Anyhow, farmers, right? There's something special about your ilk of mankind. And I respect you for that. I mean, without farmers, none of us would be here. My priority goes farmers and then transportation. Those two things are the backbone of any developed country. You know what I'm saying? So again, thank you for that too. But all right, well,
you want to hear a piece of useless knowledge on farming?
Sure.
You know what the average age of a farmer is in the United States right now?
I'm going to guess like 14 years old. Average
age of a farmer is 60.5 years old. So 60 and a half years old is the average age of a farmer.
So you're telling me
at 36 years old, I'm almost half of what the average age of the farmer in the United States is. That's a crisis. That's something that needs to be taken care of. And that's why another reason why we're doing this YouTube channel is to try to hopefully get youngsters involved in farming because they see what we're doing and they get a love and passion for it like I did.
Yeah. When I hear numbers and stuff, I like to figure out like what the differences is. Do you happen to know what that number was 20 years ago?
Statistically, over the last 50 years, the average age of a farmer has grown a quarter per year every year. So going back, 50 years, the average age of a farmer was somewhere in their mid to upper 30s.
Sure.
Wow.
Because farming was one of the largest industries in the country.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's slowly slipping.
Well, you look at the industrialized farming mechanisms, right? And just like anything else with time, technology seems to replace a lot of the guys that are out there breaking their back to do it. I would also, again, I haven't looked at those numbers, Richard, but I'd be happy to take a look at them. I'm curious if, sharecroppers that migrated up from South America, once that policy of kind of tracking those people and accounting for them, if that impacted that number at all. If you go back in time, it was 1995. We just talked about this on another episode where, the liberal agenda at the time was immigration reform. And under Bill Clinton's administration, they kind of killed the ability for a migrant to cross the border and work here with the tax stamp legally. And I would be interested to know if the absence of that age demographic has influenced the overall average age of an American farmer.
It might have. I look at that as, the statistics that are pulled to figure out the average age of a farmer is pulled off of the landowner themselves, the one that actually has their name on the operation.
Okay.
I don't think they're going to every farm and polling people on a farm and saying, okay, how old are you? How old are you? How old are you? I think they're actually looking at the farm operation, who that tax ID is tied to for the farm. And that's where they're getting their information from. If you were to look at the people that are actually working on the farm hands, the hired labor, the help, the machinists, the mechanics, whatever, I suspect that age group would be much lower. It wouldn't be 60 and a half years old because let's face it, the old guys, although, I work with a gentleman, Ryan knows him, Eugene, he's 64 years old now, I believe. And he's out there humping it just like I am. But most of the time, it's the younger guys that are doing the bull work.
Yes,
you know,
sir.
we're the ones toting the bags of seed corn and doing the heavy work in the field when something needs to be repaired.
So you look at people like Mike Rowe and what he's doing with Mike Rowe Works, and really, the message that he puts out there to the country is blue collar work isn't something to look down at. And I'm your age. I'm 38. When we were growing up, at least for me, the kind of American dream was to go to college, get a good job, buy a house, raise a couple kids, and retire with some kind of pension. Like, the story of working with your hands and building things, it wasn't pushed. And, and you look at guys out there, garbage men and stuff like that. It's a necessity that this world needs, but people diminish their value just because of the job they have. Now,
Yep.
I don't have all the answers there, but what I would say is, I spent 15 years in the trades before I went back to college. I have a clear respect for people that work with their hands. I still, if I could make if I could provide for my family the way I do with my hands as I do with my mind, I would certainly be building houses still. But I mean, I couldn't make ends meet doing that effectively. It leads to something else. So when you throw that number out there, 60.5 or whatever it was, 60.2 for the average age of a farmer in America, what that tells you is that there's a whole lot of 90-year-old men that still have their name on that title. Now, do you think that there's something behind that, such as, tax penalization or death tax or, any kind of, why are 90-year-old men or women for that matter, 90-year-old Americans keeping their name on the lease for the farm instead of signing it over to their kids?
Well, I mean, that's a political football. And we see it every election cycle. It's something that keeps getting punted back and forth. With the administration that just came in, almost immediately they said they're going to do away with the tax breaks on inheritance that Donald Trump had put in place. And yes, there are benefits to keeping it in one person's name, but you got to have the legal resources and you got to have the monetary resources and spend the money to do things like putting the farm in a trust. Maybe at some point when I turn 50 or 60 years old, I put everything in my kids' names and then they assume it. And although I'm still in charge of the business, I think it's 5 years, and I could be wrong on that because, again, political football, this changes every 4 years. But I believe it's once I put it in my children's names at 5-year point, as long as I stay alive for that 5 years, they don't have to pay an inheritance tax on it. That's the way it was structured during the last administration. With the new administration coming in, I don't know what the changes are. I've done some reading on it, and it doesn't look good. I mean, basically, no matter what, my kids are going to have to pay taxes on all of the land, all of the equipment, all of the barns and buildings that I have put together over my lifetime. My children are going to have to burden that tax debt. And let's face it, unless I save and save and save enough money to cover that tax debt, that tax liability for my children, and I hope they are successful. I hope they have great paying jobs and maybe they won't even want a farm. Maybe they'll just part the farm out when I'm dead and gone. At that point, it won't matter to me. I'll be dead and gone. But unless I do that saving for them, they're going to be slapped with hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes just to assume what I have already paid for, what I have already paid taxes on. And this is something that's tearing family farms apart. Everybody talks about big commercial farms. Well, the reason they're being commercialized is because of these kind of tax footballs that keep getting pushed back and forth every 4 years. And people need to plan around that. Farmers need to plan around that. And hopefully they've done enough research and they've done enough, they've done enough in the foreground to cover that tax liability for their children so they don't have to weigh that burden.
Yeah, I can't believe it. And it's not just what you were just explaining is kind of a nightmare situation for a man that put his body to work farming the land, took out the crop loans and the insurance and has done everything right and was able to get some equipment, get some combines, get some tractors, build the barns, put in the irrigation, do all that other stuff. And there's money that's in that. And then, you decide to croak one day. And now your kids, if they want to inherit that, they have to pay all those taxes again. But it's not just for farming, right? I mean, it applies to anything. It applies to any kind of inheritance tax. It's the it's the death tax, you know, and that is, you know, that's something we hope to get into on another episode, Richard. And I hope you could come back and talk to us about that. But Ryan, before I pivot here, you got anything to talk about on the tax situation?
So I know we were speaking off the podcast a little bit the other day, and I might be messing up the verbiage and stuff, but you remember you had said something in one of our voice conversations, and I wasn't sure what you meant. You said something about like confiscating lands or something like that.
Absolutely. Now, that's really not to do with taxes, but I'd certainly like to talk about it, unless Mike wanted to talk about something else before we got into it.
No, that's free flow. I just hearing what Ryan said. Are you talking about eminent domain?
Well, it's not eminent domain per se, because I still own the land and I still have to pay taxes on the land. So let me take you back.
Yeah. Take me back and draw the whole picture out for us and Rock Nation listening, Richard.
Okay. So let's go back 8 years. Okay. I was a fresh farmer, just really getting my feet underneath me. We were growing. I bought a 60-acre farm not far from here, and 40 acres of it was tillable land. I could put a crop on it immediately. 20 acres of it was in woodland. Okay. I went down, got the loan, bought the land, started farming on it immediately. That following year, you have to get permits to timber out that land. So I went ahead and started the process, got all the permits, everything signed to have that forest cut off, and I got the money for it, and then could go ahead and clear cut that land and put it into productive farmland. Everything that was posted for me to see on the state websites, the county websites, the federal websites said I had prime farmland in that wooded area, and that it was to be farmed if it could be. Even the Federal Register, and I could pull up, I don't have it in front of me here, but after the podcast, I could certainly give you that Federal Register number that people could look at it. Even the Federal Register says that if it is in a prime farmland, meaning the soils are perfect for growing the most amount of crop possible, that's what they call prime farmland, that it has to be utilized as such. My land qualifies. So we got the timber cut off that land and started clearing it up. NDE, Maryland Department of Environment, and the county came in and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm clearing the land to farm it." "Oh, you can't do that. That's called swamp busting. This is a wetland." I said, "This is not a wetland. Here's 4 maps that say it's not a wetland. I purchased this farm as prime farmland. Here's the Federal Register." "Oh, well, we're declaring it a wetland, and we already went on your property and took samples." I said, "What do you mean you went on my property? I told you guys you weren't allowed on my property." "Oh, that's all right. We don't have to have a warrant for that. Sue us." That's just as blatant as it can be. And basically they knew they had me, because they knew that I'm not going to spend $1 million fighting this for 20 acres of land. It's just because that land will never produce that amount of money in a crop in my lifetime. Right. So it'd be a waste to fight this going into it, even after showing them the documentation. So they can, and this is all under the name of conservation. And look, I'm not somebody who wants to go out and tear down all the woods, fill in the marshes, kill all the animals. That's not me. Right. I live here. I love looking at it. But at the same time, we have to have a balance between what we call conservation and what we have that is ours, what we paid for, and our land rights. There has to be a balance there. Now, had I bought the land and in the process of buying it, they said, "Okay, we need to research this land before you sign the paperwork to make sure there's no wetlands." Okay, fine. Well, then if it had came out that there was wetlands, non-tidal wetlands as they call them, on that farmland, then that would have been reflected in the price of the land that I paid for it. I could say, wait a minute, I'm not going to pay X amount of money for this land because it's not usable for anything. So basically, and this is as blatant as they are, I was told that you can't touch the land, you can't do anything with it, but you have the privilege to pay taxes on it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That is theft of land. As far as I'm concerned, if I have to pay taxes on something, then I own it outright. I should do on it what I am pleased to do, as long as it's not an adverse effect to the environment. And I can go out there, and I already proved it. Off of the Federal Register, again, it states what criteria there are to be considered a non-tidal wetland or prime farmland. And if it meets X amount of what they call water filtration, where if you were to cut a hole in the bottom of a bucket, stick it in the ground, pour water in it, if that water were to drop a certain amount in an hour's time, then there's enough infiltration of water there to be considered prime farmland. Mine exceeded it by 3 times the given amount.
So Richard, let me stop here, okay? All right, so you went into a business agreement with somebody to acquire some land that you believed X amount of that land was farmable. You started working it, you started tilling the land, you decided to go out and start clearing some forest land to increase your farm size, your crop size, and somebody from the state government came in there and said, no, you can't do that, right?
Correct.
Okay. I have a couple questions. So the land that you had cleared and to start farming on, did they allow you to keep using that portion of the land, or did they tell you you have to not farm this either?
No, I could continue to keep using the portion that was already cleared.
Okay. Now, since the federal document says that land is farmable, but the state document says that it's not, who has jurisdiction, and what punishment could you face if you decided to say, fuck the state, I'm just going to go ahead and do what I want to do?
Well, the federal document would take precedence, in these matters, because it falls under the jurisdiction of the USDA. What I was facing with the Maryland Department of Environment was, I could get the numbers for you, but it was about $15,000 a day fine for every day that I do not return it to its original, trees, this, that, and the other. And that was the other thing. They wanted to originally come after me for cutting the trees, even though their signature was on that piece of paper stating that it was not a non-tidal wetland. They originally signed off saying it was a dry upland. So they were contradicting themselves. But
that's government for you.
In the end, I believe, if I remember right, the total that I would have been facing was about $1.8 million for 20 acres of land that they didn't own. And they're telling me that I can't use.
So, that's terrible, man. If there was something I could do to help, if anybody listening, if there was something that anybody could do to help you, what would that look like? Well,
at this point, it wouldn't be to help me. It would be to help everybody. I mean, because this doesn't just affect farmers. This affects, and here's before we move on, here's the caveat to this. Okay, I could use that land and I can farm it today if I do one thing. Do you guys know what that one thing would be?
Oh, you pay somebody. I see. You got your fingers there on the here on the Zoom.
Yep. If I'd have paid them, if I'd have paid the Maryland Department of Environment, and again, this is just spitballing, it was something about $6,000 an acre, more than I paid for it. But if I were to pay them roughly $6,000 an acre, I could buy what they called credits, and I could go in there and put a Walmart in.
So it's not about the environment; it's about fucking money.
No, exactly. That right there, you just said everything when you said it's not about the environment; it's about another way, as far as I'm concerned, extorting money from the American citizen.
Oh yeah, and
this doesn't apply. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I see it all the time in my industry because I do, for context for those that don't know and haven't listened, I do firearms training, and one of the things I do a lot of is the HQL, handgun qualification license training. And what that more or less is up until October of 2013, you had the right and the ability to go out and buy a handgun in Maryland. No license, no, whatever. You still have to do a background check. But anyway, long story short, after that point now, you must have a license, what's called a handgun qualification license, in order to do that. So they've stolen that right from you, and they say pretty much as long as you do this and you pay this money, we'll give that right back to you. It's not about safety. It's not about the environment. It's all about, hey, as long as you paid your dues, you can have that right back. As long as you paid your dues, you can buy a handgun. As long as you paid your dues, you can use your land as you see fit that you already bought, from. But you got to give us that kickback, though.
It's another way for the government to take more money.
Exactly.
And you see that all over the place, and they have, here's the thing, Richard and Ryan and Rock Nation, if there's a couple of guys like us, a couple of middle-aged, middle-class white guys just right of center having this conversation, I mean, we're not special. You know what I'm saying? I don't have a PhD. I don't think Ryan does. And Richard, I can't speak for you, but no PhD there either. But let me tell you guys something. There are rooms of economics professors and doctorates that are so much smarter when it comes to this shit that are working against us, right? That are sitting in a room somewhere and coming up with another way to take more of your money.
How can we tax them this week?
Exactly. And they're incentivized to do such.
Well, look at O'Malley taxing the rain.
Oh, seriously?
Right.
Oh,
So those of you guys that aren't from Maryland, right? Our recently, not the current governor, but previous, there was a rain tax that was placed on us. And, it's everything. And Richard, at the beginning of the episode here, you're talking about the death tax. And now, and we had to experience the rain tax. And as Ryan was just mentioning, they found a way to tax your Second Amendment right. And it just continues to go and go and go. There's penalties. If you're trading stocks, there's penalties if you decide to sell something immediately after you bought it. And it just goes so much deeper, guys. And there are legit, teams, units of people out there that do nothing else but to figure out more ways to take your money. And, the only way you could stop that, guys, is to become more active, get your voice heard, start going to these meetings and stuff like that. And if you can't do that, as Ryan and I mentioned, this is what this platform is, guys. Head over to Rock Podcast Nation, go ahead and sign up over there and share with us the message that you want Rock Nation to hear,
if you're a hardworking American, you go out there and you get a job and you make money, you have an income, they tax that. Then you take some of that money and you go buy a vehicle, they tax that. You go out and you fucking put gas in that vehicle, they tax that. You die and you want to give whatever you've bought and paid off to a family member, they tax that. You literally can't escape taxes even in death. It's
right.
Crazy how much they tax the hell out of us.
And there's another one here. So for those of you out there that are fortunate enough to have like a retirement account or a 401k, I'm sure that you've seen this, right? So the standard tax on your wage is somewhere around, average is right around 30%. You'll pay about 30% of all the money you make goes to taxes. But if you take that money as you earn it and do not tax it, but put it in a savings account for later, but then you decide to take your money back at any point, they don't just tax you on the regular rate. They don't tax you on the rate that you should have been taxed 20 years ago when you started putting that money in. They tax you at the highest tax rate possible, plus hit you with the penalty. So they are constantly looking for ways to tax more of your money. And the only way to get that to stop, guys, is to become a little bit more active, either by yourself or by supporting people like Rock Nation or Shorebilly Farmer and having us act as your advocate and get that word out. So, man, Richard, you are a smart guy, man. I hear it in your voice. And but the reason you're on the show is because you said we left some meat on the bone with some COVID stuff. I got to ask you, as a agricultural professional, right, a farmer, how has COVID affected like what you do day to day?
Well, here on the farm, obviously we're kind of secluded. It hasn't affected me directly here on the farm. Yeah, I don't wear the mask, and I'm just one of them people. I don't wear the mask when I go out either. And this gets back to that individual liberty thing that we were talking about at the very beginning. I believe that people have the right to individual liberty. If you want to wear a mask, that's fine. I have no problem with that. If you want to wear a full chem suit, mop gear and all, wear it. That's fine. But since when did I, as an individual, become responsible for your health? Because that's no longer individual liberty. Now you're looking at social liberty. And that's not what the construct of our Bill of Rights and our Constitution is. Mm-hmm. So, when you talk about how it's affected me here on the farm, I don't wear the mask here on the farm. My kids don't wear a mask. My wife doesn't wear a mask. We're breathing fresh air. They're growing immune systems. But it has affected me in my wallet more than anything.
Yep.
Because as we've all seen, toilet paper shortages, you can't get dishwashers, dryers because they've shut down all the plants and factories. Everything's on back order. That same thing happened to us in agriculture where, certain things weren't being made for a while. Prices skyrocketed, supply and demand. It's going to happen. So yes, like everybody, that hit us in the wallet. Now, what worries me is, we had that big dip in our economy at the beginning of all this. Well, China and our overseas, what was supposed to be allies, but let's face it, China is not our ally. They're here to extort us for what they can get.
Mm-hmm. As they should, right? As they should. I mean, there are no friends, right?
You know what? They are doing for them what Donald Trump did for us. They're looking out for them. And that's the way it should be. I don't begrudge them for that. I begrudge our own for not seeing that.
Sure.
And protecting us the way they should.
Yep.
Everybody should look out for their own. I'm going to look out for my family. I'm going to do what's best for my family.
Hell yeah.
Can I do it and still be a decent human being? Of course. But at the end of the day, if I had to choose between, the neighbor or my family, guess who I'm choosing? That's just human nature. You take care of your own.
Yep.
And that's us in the military. We take care of our own. But they bought, it was over, I believe, and again, I have to look at the figures, but I believe it was over 1 billion bushels worth of our commodities. So that's soybeans, corn, small grain, wheat, and things like that, when our economy was depressed. Well, now our prices are through the roof because they had that huge derecho out west, which really hurt our supply here in the United States. So prices began to climb. And right now we're seeing commodity prices at levels we haven't seen in about 8 to 10 years, which is good for us. But at the same time, that hurts us on the back end because let's say we're getting, and again, round figures, let's say I'm getting $6 for a bushel of corn this year. Last year I was getting $4. So the price went up, right? Well, guess what the price of seed corn does that I have to plant the following year? Guess what the price of the fertilizer and the nitrogen? Those guys aren't dumb. They know we're making more money. They want to make more money. So that price goes up. Now that's all well and good, right? If it stays level, if it stays linear, we're good. But what happens when we have a bumper crop in not only the United States, but our next largest producer in the world is Argentina? What happens if we both have a bumper crop? Man, that price plummets. But guess what's still high? All of our input costs.
Yep.
So COVID really threw our commodity markets in a spin when all this began. And now we're seeing this huge trend upward because, again, China capitalized on that depression when it happened. So now we're elevated, but I believe it's a false elevation. And I'm worried about what's going to happen if people don't plan for the next 2-3 years, because I have a feeling we're going to start seeing those numbers slide back down rather quickly, and it's going to catch a lot of farmers off guard.
Sure. So you experienced, so COVID as in what every other person in the country is kind of dealing with right now, just wearing the mask and being inconvenienced, hasn't really inconvenienced you a whole lot. But what has is the economic ramifications of a country, of a globe that was kind of put into turmoil. I respect that, man. And on another show I do, I talked about, TP Gate and really went into the numbers about the global supply and demand system and why toilet paper was the commodity that broke Amazon, right? It's a funny story. Maybe we'll get into it here sometime, but individual liberties. Sure. I get that, right? Nobody should make me wear a piece of clothing or really do anything, hang a certain color of blinds in my house or put a certain color of shingle on my roof or, buy a certain tire for my car, right? Those are all those individual liberties that we have, and nobody should really make you do that. But what about if you really fall into two camps? You fall into a camp that COVID is as dangerous as everyone said it was, or it's not. And if COVID was as dangerous as everybody says it was, we kind of have a social liberty to look out for our brothers and sisters, and to do what we can to protect that. And I think Ryan has brought this up several times that at the beginning, I think everybody was willing to do that. Would you agree that, 40, 50 weeks ago now that you were willing to, okay, I'm going to wear the mask when I walk into Walmart? Where were you 50 weeks ago?
When this all first broke, we didn't know what we were dealing with. I equate it to the same thing. If you remember 4 years prior, we had the Ebola outbreak, especially hit California. Okay. That was some scary shit. I mean, let's just face it. It was the realm of the unknown. How fast is it going to spread? How many deaths is it going to create? Yeah. And, I was very apprehensive about going anywhere. If I had to, I probably would have worn a mask, but it just so happened in that short time frame, I really, even with my 9-to-5 job, not just the farming, Yeah, it really didn't have to go anywhere. I always work alone, essentially. So it didn't affect me. But one time, I think I went into a facility. It was a state-owned facility, so you had to wear the protection. So yes, I was on board with everybody. But then as things started to happen and unfold, I said, wait a minute, the numbers just, to me, I'm a statistics man. You know, you can play with numbers on the front end, but those back end numbers are always going to be the same. And, you know, you look at things that were happening early on with COVID. Let's go back to April, May timeframe. You know, we heard about all the deaths and the fact that the morgues were getting overrun, and they showed video of, you know, refrigerated trucks loading bodies on it. And then the very next day, you see a lady who works at the hospital is got her camera on Facebook Live, walking around the corner and saying, look, I told you this is all BS. And what they showed on the news was not bodies being loaded into a refrigerator truck. It was a meat packing plant loading quarter hinds of calves. I mean, that was on Facebook Live. I mean, and then, of course, Facebook took it down. I don't know why, but Facebook took it down. And
you know why.
We know why.
Everybody knows why. Everybody knows why Facebook took it down. Yeah. You know, the guys listening right now, Richard, they know why. But so, not to cut you off, sorry, I apologize for that. But,
go ahead.
You know, 50 weeks ago, sure, I think we all kind of agreed. And the problem is you've got so many loud people on both sides. You got half the people that are saying all of this is a sham. Nobody's, you know, the people that are dying, the numbers are much fewer than people are saying. And then, you know, that's a pretty loud majority. And then you have another loud majority that's saying you should still be acting today as if you were, you know, 50 weeks ago.
Why?
And it really just kind of boils down to where you're getting your news.
Yeah.
And that speaks to another problem all on its own, right? Who owns the news? And somebody was saying recently on another show I follow that, you know, buying ad space. If you could make an organization, doesn't matter what it is. Let's say it's Shorebilly Farmer, right? And you start selling some ads for your program or whatever, and you do this for a few years, and before you know it, without you knowing, it's been one organization under several organization names that have constantly been buying your advertisement, right? And then you become dependent on that advertising dollar. And then when they decide to stop buying your advertisement and then you go under, you're kind of screwed. And that is how organizations get manipulated into spreading an agenda, right? And if you look at any major news organization, that is what has happened. You know, you were calling China our friend earlier, not really saying they should be, right? But, you know, there are near peer adversaries, always have been. And everyone wants to kind of scoff at the idea that another country would influence the results of any decision that's made in America. But the bottom line is it's true. You know, what's the easiest way, you know, Richard, if you wanted to beat me and Ryan up, what's the best way you could do that? You'd get us to fight each other first, right? Eliminate some of the competition. Sure. You know what I'm saying? And that's what our near peer adversaries are doing. China could kill us essentially, and I'm using, you know, not technically kill us, but they could weaken us as a nation by causing us to fight amongst each other.
Or spreading a virus.
Yeah, well, or spreading a virus, sure. I mean, if you believe that. Or, you know, what they can do is they could take half the camp that follows CNN and the other half the camp that follows Fox News, buy all of the advertising for each of those two companies and start to generate a narrative that aligns better with their intended result.
All while paying the son of the future president of the United States, now current.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's messy, but it falls into those camps. You know, either you believe one side that says it's dangerous or you believe the other side that says it doesn't. And the problem is when you're dealing with the size of the population, eventually Americans are pretty good at smelling shit, you know, and eventually we're going to catch on like this shit doesn't smell right, you know, and I want to ask you this. How long do you think we will be left in kind of the current situation? You know, for instance, you're in Maryland as well. I'm not sure if DelMarVa is doing a little bit different, but my kids were able to return to school part-time this week. You know, how long until you think somebody finally just says, okay, guys, this is the national take your mask off day, right? From today on, you'll never have to wear a mask again, because I guarantee you that's not going to happen. No. It's going to be a slow approach and people will slowly just start to forget about it. But how long do you think, Richard, until, I don't know, shit's back to normal?
I personally, I don't think it'll stop until we, the people, stop it. until enough people gather in the streets in front of the Capitol and tell the governor we've had enough. I mean, you've seen it in Pennsylvania. I mean, they overturned the governor's ruling, and the governor said, I don't care what the court said, I'm still doing this. Regardless of the fact that the legislature said, no, you're not going to do this. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's tyranny.
Yeah.
Right. And I know, Ryan's big on the Second Amendment. Isn't that what the Second Amendment was for?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that we had to go out and actively start shooting at people, but it's there as our defense against a tyrannical government. When the government no longer represents the people, it's the people's duty to make sure that the government does represent the people. And, you brought up an interesting thing, Mike, about you have two camps in the media, right? You got the CNN world, and then you got the Fox world. I don't blame them for our situation. You know who I blame for our situation of us being, one, divided, and two, not able to wade through the bullshit that our government gives us? You know who I blame?
Who is that?
The education system.
Yeah.
Because for years, our kids have not been taught to critically think. They have been taught to push the I believe button and move forward. And that is the biggest problem that I see facing our country. It's not the media. It's not the racial tensions, which I think are nowhere near as high as the media portrays them. It is our education system. Our kids are not being taught to critically think, to look at a situation and formulate what's going on in their own head. They're being taught to look at a situation and how to see it only from this one angle.
That's true.
And to me, that's what we're seeing, a result of 40 to 50 years of, we'll call it indoctrination in our schools, of not being able to critically think. You're seeing the result of that with the COVID epidemic. The statistics are out there. All right. Look at Florida. Florida had 8,900 deaths per 100,000. Okay. No masks, or masks are optional, but no lockdowns, no shutting down businesses. Schools have been open. Look at California. Okay. 9,100 deaths per 100,000. Full lockdowns. I don't think school's even going yet in California, because the last I heard, the teachers unions are still up in arms about everything. I mean, just about as strict as you could possibly be. So they have more deaths per 100,000 than Florida does. And take in consideration, yes, there are differences in population. There are differences in some people coming across the border that shouldn't be. Thanks, Democrats. But Florida has the highest elder population in the country. And what does COVID supposedly target the most is the elder population. Now, look, I'm not saying that COVID is not a bad flu. It is. I mean, again, it's in front of us. We can see it. It's a bad flu. Mm-hmm. But is it as bad as we're being taught? I don't believe so. And again, maybe it's just because I have retained my ability to critically think, because I didn't hang on every word that was taught to me in school. I did my own research and still do my own research. But I have the proof right here on my laptop that the numbers were inflated. And God bless his soul, my uncle passed away back in April, ate up head to toe with cancer, tested 3 times for COVID, negative all 3 times. What do you think they put on his first? Let me say this. What do you think they put on his first death certificate? Died of COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've got the proof right here. And I had to threaten them with lawsuits to get them to amend it and say, no, he died of cancer as a primary cause, not COVID. He didn't even have COVID. And I opened a whistleblower complaint on this. I said, look, and I blame Trump for this. He should have never introduced money into this for the hospitals, because all it did was incentivize them to have more cases. We don't have a pandemic. We have a case-demic. Mm-hmm. Okay, we have case after case after case. But the death toll does not match a pandemic. I'm sorry, but if you have higher than a 99% chance of living across the whole spectrum of ages, that is not a pandemic. Okay. Yes, it targets old people. I get it. But old people can be targeted by almost any virus out there.
Yep.
Sure. It's anybody that could be potentially immunocompromised. And it's pretty common sense that elderly have a softer immune system. And not to cut you off, you said a couple of things that really resonated with me. First was you were talking about the public education system. And if you haven't already, head over to Rock Podcast Nation, sign up for the exclusive content. Ryan and I jumped in. We did almost 2 complete hours full of that over there. And there's some really good information there. Hopefully you guys can get access to that. And, you know, statistics reporting the death rate is fine, right? It's how they manipulate, it's how they portray the data, right? And in engineering school, one thing we learned pretty quickly was that data is just data. It's just a series of ones and zeros until you ask a question of it. And it doesn't matter if you could ask any question you want and be able to skew the data to align with your narrative. You know, deaths are deaths. All right. I got it. The case demic, I get it. But at the end of the day, if everybody was presented with that information, then they would be able to make up their own mind about its significance. You know, so I do blame the news, because the news are the ones that are perpetuating this.
And the politicians, too.
Yeah, the politicians and the news.
From the left and right.
You know, if the news were to follow their journalistic purview and their journalistic creed, which died about 20 years ago at the advent of the 24-hour news cycle, you know, there would be legitimate journalists and a gatekeeper that was saying, hey, we're going to present the news, the truth. And that's not what's being presented. And that is why I blame those camps. I blame Fox News. I blame CNN. I blame everybody. You know, I've resorted, and not resorted because I've always done this, but the news I get from the newspaper. You know, I find like people, you know, not something that's being broadcast globally. I agree with you, man. I agree with you completely on the indoctrination of our youth. I agree that, you know, the stuff that's being presented to us isn't necessarily the truth. And, you know, you're saying all the right stuff, man. And if that message was on the news, I think that the world would open back up. I think the economy would open back up. And you didn't quite answer my question, right? You said, I asked you, how long do you think it would last until everything was kind of back to normal? And you kind of put an event-based result on that. It's not going to open up until enough people say that it needs to open up. But in the absence of that, or assuming that does happen, what are you thinking here, man? Like 3 months, 6 months, end of the summer? What are you thinking?
Without that event, I think you're seeing it happen sometime next year.
Yeah, 2022?
Yeah, 2022. And unfortunately, the reason I believe that is because at that point, you're going to see an election cycle come around. Mm-hmm. And that's what's driving all of this. Okay. To me, in my view, and again, I'm just one man, dumb Shorebilly farmer here on DelMarVa. In my view, this is political. It's politically motivated, and everything that points to being it politically motivated was in this stimulus bill that they're trying to pass. Okay. Yeah. Out of that $1.9 trillion, $600 billion goes to the American people. The rest of the money goes to bail out the badly managed blue states that are underwater because they have been spending, and they don't know how to balance a budget. This bill, yes, there is a lot that still goes overseas, more than it should be. But if you look at the bill and you read the nomenclature, I think Ron Paul had a very good write-up on where a lot of this money was going. Now, granted, yes, that is his view on it, and it's slanted, but he gives excerpts from the bill. And he's showing where this is going, a majority to blue states to bail them out of their current financial situation. So I think once you see this bill pass, and once we start ramping up that next election cycle, which there is 24 governors coming due next election cycle, which is in 2 years, I think once that starts to ramp up, everybody's going to want COVID to go away. They've been bailed out. They've been net zeroed. They've got their money. They're happy. Now they need to start looking forward to the good things. Look what we did. We got rid of COVID. Look what we did. We made the mask mandates go away. So, you know, I honestly believe that we're going to be dealing with the fallout from this, the mask mandates, the restrictions on businesses. I should say the unconstitutional mask mandates and restrictions on businesses until sometime mid next year. And that's just my humble opinion.
So I'm going to take us down a rabbit hole, right? Larry Hogan, governor of Maryland. He's up. He's already passed the halfway mark on his second term, which he's limited to 2 terms. So based on his actions, based on his talk, based on his posturing, what office do you think he runs for next, and what party do you think he runs under?
I think he's going to go Republican, and I think he's going to try for the presidency.
Yeah.
And he's going to fail miserably, just like O'Malley did when he ran for the Democrat.
You think he'll take time off between the governorship and the 2024 run, or do you think he's going to leapfrog? Do you think he's going to try to go for like a Senate seat or a House seat and then to the presidency?
I think he's going to try for the presidency, and the reason I say that is because he's in the news. Okay, every time you turn around, Larry Hogan is talking about how great he is for his partnership with the Korean people. And basically his wife's friends giving them a bunch of money for some faulty test kits.
Oh, yeah. Where are those tests at?
Yeah, where are the test kits?
Are they still being guarded in the mountains of Maryland by the Maryland State Police, waiting for the orange man to come steal them from them?
Yeah. So I think he's going to try to ride the coattails of that publicity right into the White House. But he's going to go as far as O'Malley did. He might be popular here in Maryland, but outside of Maryland, nobody knows who he is, and nobody cares who he is.
Honestly, I think that's true if he runs as a Republican. I think that he'll do better. I'm not saying he's going to be successful, but I think he'll do better, honestly, if he runs as a Democrat. I think he's going to have if he runs as a Democrat, he's going to have a lot of Democrats behind him, and he's going to have the media behind him, too.
So here's my spin on that. So first of all, he would not run Democrat against the incumbent. So if Joe Biden is still alive and seems to be doing the right thing, I see you shaking your head over there, Richard, but if Joe Biden is still alive and still tracking straight, no one's going to run against him. If not, it'll be Kamala Harris. If Kamala Harris runs, not a single Democrat stands a chance against a black woman running on an incumbent term to be president of the United States.
Condoleezza Rice or Candace Owens.
Yeah.
But I think that if Governor O'Malley, and those of you guys listening from around the United States or globe right now, Governor Hogan is the governor of the state of Maryland. I don't think he'll run. I don't think he'll put a hat in for a presidential bid, and simply because it doesn't fit the narrative, right? So what he'll do is he'll separate himself strategically from any kind of cancer that's around him and start lobbying for other, presidential bids or something like that, and become in that camp, just like you saw Mitt Romney do. And I think the next gen Republican is going to be maybe, Donald Jr. I think Mitt Romney might come back, put his hat in it. And I don't think Governor Hogan will do it.
Well, this is what I see Hogan doing, and this is what I see him doing. And if he's going to do it, he's going to be most successful this way. I think this is my take. I see him running for. I see him running in 2022 for, I think it's a House seat as a Democrat. Right, so he's that gets him in. It gets him in the office. It gets him in the door as a Democrat, and that gets that rolling and gets him momentum. And it buys him time until the 2028 election. Because, like you said, whether as a Republican or a Democrat, I don't see him beating Joe Biden or Kamala in 2024.
Right.
But let's just say Joe Biden survives everything and stuff. He runs in 2024. Let's say he wins 2028. So it's all open field now. I can see him jumping from his Democrat House seat to the presidential run now. And I see him, if he does that, he's gonna have the media in his back pocket. He's gonna have those dumbass Republicans that'll go whichever way the wind blows. They'll vote for him too. I see that if he's going to continue his political career, I see him doing that and having his most probable chance of success that way. I see that.
It really depends. I mean, it depends on the political climate at the time. While you were saying that, I was kind of doing some mental shit in my head. If Governor Hogan over the next 4 to 8 years or however long he can, if he were to create some massive reform in the state of Maryland for like gerrymandering and kind of start working on using Maryland as a case study for ranked choice election and a whole bunch of stuff like that, and kind of built out what the real America wants to see in a political office. If he were able to do that, then I think that he would pull on a lot of votes. But as soon as you do that, you're breaking ranks, and you lose the support of the Republican and Democratic national parties. So at this point, unless we have massive shifts across the country when it comes to our election reform, not a single person in office right now is going to really change anything. It's going to start with the people. And Governor Hogan isn't going to do that. He's politicized, right? I think he's the head of like the governor's breakfast and the head of the governor's union or whatever that is. You know, I mean, he's in the weeds. He's in the swamp, you know?
He is.
There's nothing there. Shorebilly, man, you're killing it here. You're such a great guest. You are the first guest of ROC Podcast Nation. And if anybody else wants to follow in Richard's footsteps here and connect and come on and talk about some stuff that we've covered in previous episodes, or has something really cool that you want to share with the nation, let us know. Send us an email at admin@rocpodcastnation.com. That's admin@rocpodcastnation.com. Or it's even easier, jump over to the Facebook page, send us a message. Super easy.
Absolutely. Richard, if people want to find you and follow you, where can they do that at? And how can they do that?
But we've got a Shorebilly Farmer Facebook page. And if you want to watch our videos and like and subscribe to them, you can find us on YouTube at Shorebilly Farmer.
That's right. And all the ways to find Richard and Shorebilly Farmer will be down in the show notes, guys. So make sure you're giving him a good Rock Nation hug. All right. Go over there and say that you heard him on Rock Nation.
And I would like to add, I don't do anything. I don't discuss politics at all on my channel. I mean, I think we have enough politics in our day-to-day life. So what you see on my channel is strictly about farming, family, and fun.
That's good.
And you know, working on equipment. I don't talk about politics there at all. There's a time and a place for it.
Yeah.
Just like church, and you know, there's a time and a place for preaching, but you won't find it there.
You know what? I was going to let you go, man, but you just brought something up that fucking hit me different. So for so many years, and I could tell by your look and by knowing you to the extent that I do, and knowing that you're in the services and stuff like that, that you follow a certain creed in America. And based on the words you just said, right? We don't talk about church and we don't talk about religion, right? Or church and politics. There's a time and a place for that. That is why the vocal minority has taken over this country. It's because we've been indoctrinated to think that you don't talk about God at the dinner table or, in common company. You don't talk about politics. Those are taboo. Well, the people that are shaping the future of this country, they're not afraid to talk about that stuff. They're not afraid to talk about LGBTQ movements or racial injustices or religion or politics. They're not afraid to talk about any of that. Now, I'm not telling you the Shorebilly Farmer. Of course, I can't tell you, but I'm not telling you Shorebilly Farmer is or is not the place for that. But until people wake up and start realizing that you do need to talk about religion, you do need to talk about politics, you need to fucking hold your ground when it comes to your values. Because if you're not willing to talk about it, if you're not willing to do the research and educate yourself enough to be able to have that conversation with facts to persuade the loudest among us, then you might as well just shut your mouth. You might as well not even speak up. You might as well forget about the future of this country as it is the way you want it to be, because the vocal minority, Richard, they're out there talking about church. They're out there talking about politics, right? They're the ones that got the pledge taken out of the school. They're the ones that got In God We Trust taken off. Those are the ones. It's those people.
I will say, I kind of go in the middle, and what I mean by that is, like, with my company, with PTP Firearms Training, what we do, or how I do things, is I don't really talk about, at my classes, I don't talk about political parties or even politicians, really. I talk about the topics at hand and the facts surrounding it, and I pretty much lead people to their own decisions, like have them come to their own conclusions. And if that happens to be for a party or a candidate that I'm in support of, hey, then cool. That's the way I go about it. I don't because I have people from all different backgrounds in my classes: Democrats, fucking Republicans, gay, straight, blah 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 blah, and I don't give a shit about any of that.
As a business, you can't.
I don't know. I don't give a shit about that. I really don't, even outside of business. But but if I can if I can provide those people with the facts and the numbers and show them and lead them to the same conclusion I've come to, that any types of gun control is an infringement upon our Second Amendment rights, and that our Second Amendment rights are that valuable, then if I can lead them to that same conclusion and their voting, follows, then that is part of my mission.
I agree with you, man. But how we choose to shape the conversation the onus of that is on us. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying grab a flag or grab a Trump sign or grab a Biden sign or hold up a cross. I'm not saying to do that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that if you're afraid to speak about something, you should probably look in the mirror and figure out if the shape of the country is the way you like it or it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And don't be afraid to use your communication skills or your social engineering or manipulation skills to try to align somebody to the view that you want, that you think is best for this country. I'm not saying go out there and fucking make a scene. I'm just saying be present, and consider where you want this country to go.
Yep.
And the only way that this country is going to go the way you want it to go, and it doesn't matter which way that is if you are not afraid to talk about it.
Yeah.
Right. And again, I understand you're Richard, you're building a YouTube community and you're keeping that fun and happy and talking about farming and stuff like that. And maybe politics or religion doesn't have a place there. Right. And Ryan, your business, you start talking shit about Democrats, you're going to have a lot less customers. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And
Democrat money spends just as good as Republican money.
I get that. and in my profession, I can't talk about the stuff either, but at the end of the day, once I clock out, if I'm having a conversation with somebody, I got to get them thinking, and I tend to subtly, as you said, start talking about stuff and then let people come to their own decision. But I'm not afraid to bring it up.
Yep.
So, Mike, to ask you a question, since you brought it up, do you believe that actions speak louder than words, or do you think that words make the man?
You got to give me a second to think about that because, generations have always said actions speak louder than words, right? But I would say that results speak louder than both. So if your ability to make massive shifts comes through your vocabulary or your ability to communicate, fucking A, take that route. If you're if you're a bad talker, bad speaker, you got to stutter, something like that, get out there and show your methods. But, to answer your question, all right, without dicking around here, I'm going to use Ryan's thing here. I'm not going to take the bait, but to answer your question, I would say that your actions speak louder than your words.
Okay. The reason I asked that, I didn't mean to put you on the spot there.
Oh, I love being on the spot. That's what, I'm on the hot seat, man. We've got the voice here. I am on the spot permanently.
I mean, obviously, we're on a medium where our voice right now is really the only thing people can go off, right? They don't see our actions. But in Ryan's situation and my situation with being on YouTube and just in life, let's take sports. Everybody knows sports, right? Let's take sports analogies. When you see a guy make an awesome play, he gets up, he's spiking the ball, he's in the face of his opponent. All right, he's a good player. When you see a guy make an awesome play and he gets up, head held high, and he just turns around and walks away, who do you think you got more respect for? I got more respect for that guy that just, knows he just absolutely obliterated his opponent, but he held his composure and just walked away back to the next, go on to the next play.
Sure.
And to me, that's how I live my life. I live what I feel. I might speak about it from times, and that's actually why I deleted my personal Facebook account, was because I was speaking too much about it, and it actually started affecting me at home. And I said, that's not who I want to be. I started getting way too political on Facebook, and it was affecting me. I said, you know what? I can exert change through, yes, my voice. Yes, I can write letters to, my politicians, the ones that represent me, the ones that I hopefully help put into the office. But I can also show it, and that's one of the reasons why we did the YouTube channel for First Generation Farming, is it instills good values as well. You're going to see hard work. You're going to see the results of bad policies, because I do talk about things like that on the farming channel, things that are going to affect farming. So it's not that I don't talk about politics at all. I just don't get into the muddy waters of it.
Right.
But what I want people to see is the results of bad politics versus good politics, right? Now, when you see the little guy making it and he's doing good because a policy changed, and I'll talk about it, that policy changed. And I mean, look, we were able to do this, expand our operation or what have you. That will be talked about and that will be shown, because I feel like, yes, people can absorb through their ears, but they learn through their eyes. And that's just how I feel. Most people I feel are visual learners, and they can see, when they see the result of something, then they can start to understand what it is that they're voting for. and what changes, how it actually affects them.
You're
in
right.
other words.
On that topic, I watch and listen to many of your episodes on YouTube, but have you ever done a video? I might have missed it. Have you done a video on your 40, 60 acres situation in the state and all that stuff?
Not yet. I kind of actually, I want that story to get out there. So I'm hoping that once we reach, X amount of viewers, whatever that may be, I haven't decided yet, 10,000, 100,000 viewers, wherever I think it is time to release that information, I will talk about that. And there probably will be a dedicated episode to that. But right now, where the channel is young and I'm hoping to grow an audience, I don't want to get too into the weeds with things like that yet. I don't want people to go, oh, Lord, here we go with this.
Right.
I want them to be excited about what we're doing. But at the same time, I want it to be informational. So there is a plan down the road to get into things like that, and get into some of the laws outside of that are affecting farming, like the taxes that we talked about on this show.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with you. And to speak about the sports guy stuff, right? I coached football for
You coached me one year.
Coach Ryan, yeah, so it speaks to my age,
Good
right?
Lord.
But I coached for years, and one of the things that I always imparted upon my kids, right, was is just a simple saying: act as if you've been here before, right? If you crush that play, man, and you just get up and you walk back to the huddle, man, this guy's been here, right? But if you jump up and you're acting a fool and you're monkeying around, it's like, well, he must not do this very often.
Yeah.
It's kind of the philosophy.
Yeah.
But Richard, man, thanks again for coming on the show. You are our type of people. All right. So anytime you want to come back on, man, you just let us know. All right.
Man, just anytime you want to have me on here, this was a blast. And thank you to the Rock Nation.
Hey guys. This is Rock Nation, man. You know it. You've been listening all along. The best thing that you could do to help us continue this mission, if you can, head over to Rock Podcast Nation and pledge your support. If you can't do that, the most important thing you can do right now is to go to our Facebook page, go to the community tab and hit invite. All right. Invite everybody on your list. Yeah. Everybody. And
Don't half-ass it.
Yeah. Most of them probably aren't going to respond, but if you do that and then your friends do that same thing, before you know it, our reach is going to expand quite a bit. And while you're there, make sure you find Shorebilly Farmer. You'll be able to find his page through our page as a page that we've liked. And guys, just help spread the message, man.
Everyone's got that liberal ass relative that hates conservatives. Go on Facebook, invite them to our page now.
And with that, guys, Richard, thanks again for coming on. That's it for me.
Deuces, stay strapped and get clapped.
We're out.